Hello, I'm David Breeden. I'm the senior minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, a historically humanist congregation. And this is Coffee and Wisdom, when we take a humanist perspective on theological and philosophical issues. Uh, this week, we're looking at syncretism, and today is syncretism and strange brews. Well, very quickly to review syncretism, and that is an Y in is the combining of different beliefs and various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in theology and mythology of religion. Doesn't have to be about religion, but the term really comes out of the look at how religions meld, develop, and change over time. I've mentioned Jesus, for example. We've got a hipster Jesus, a Chinese Jesus, a Hindu Jesus. And yes, so when a religious icon is into a culture, that culture then changes that icon, most likely, and gets some cultural assumptions from the new culture into the old icon. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. And Tuesday, I looked at this strange case of wee woo wee. Yes, wee woo wee published several books. One is called Ask the Awakened, The Negative Way. But turns out wee woo wee was Terence Gray, a British entrepreneur who lived from 1895 to 1986. So he published under the name of Wee Woo Wee. His books are actually very good. Many of the ways that he dealt with Taoism are extraordinarily brilliant, but it is still Western culture that is the basis for his cultural assumptions. On Tuesday, also, I mentioned the case of Hakamon. Hakamon is a Shinto god and protector of warriors, and therefore became very important to Japanese samurai. But if you look at the iconography of Hakamon, you will quickly see that he is Chinese and is definitely a Buddha sitting on that lotus flower and not actually a Japanese samurai as we traditionally think of them. So, an idea coming out of Buddhism that was subsumed into Shinto, the native Japanese religion. Well, so synchronism to beat the oppressors is also a thing, however. So we have syncretism in which cultures are learning from other cultures. I looked at the Silk Road last week as a way that this happened, but syncretism also has to do with ways that oppressed people go about figuring out how to beat the oppressor and still hang on to some of their religious traditions or philosophical traditions. The two most famous in this hemisphere are Santeria and Voodoo. So, current estimates are that about 12 million to almost 13 million Africans were shipped across the Atlantic over a span of 400 years during the Atlantic slave trade. The routes were different from different places, but what we need to look at West Africa, where enslaved people came from, to the Caribbean and to the southern United States. Santeria means the way of the saints. It was practiced and is practiced. It is by no means over. It practiced primarily in Cuba and also immigrants from Cuba. It reflects beliefs of the Yoruba people of Nigeria and a few other places, as we shall see. The Catholic saints represent orishas, divine beings from Yoruba tradition. So one takes a close look at the altars of Santeria, and one sees the Virgin Mary, one sees various saints, but also some things that may not exactly fit into traditional Christian Roman Catholic ideas. So Yoruba people come from Sierra Leone, Ghana, Benin, Togo, and Nigeria. It is a language group. Here is a family in traditional Yoruba garb. And these are the people who were enslaved and brought into the Caribbean during the Atlantic slave period. Yoruba people in West Africa today are an ethnic group. There are about 46 million people. And then there are the diaspora Yoruba people here in this hemisphere. So we take a close look at a Santeria um, altar and we see, yep, there's that saint, there's that Christian saint, flowers, candles, things of that sort. But also we see some other things: an apple, a horse, a couple of maybe angels on there, and then a rooster. So, yes, this doesn't really add up to a Roman Catholic idea of an altar. What's going on? And if we look very closely at some of the Santeria altars, we're going to see then that syncretism occurring. We're going to see symbols on candles that are not quite Roman Catholic anymore, and as you shall see. Now, the orishas coming from the Yoruba tradition are very much identified with African people, African ideas in their original form, but then they have to be modified when if they're going to beat the Roman Catholic hierarchy at its own game. Well, there are lots of books about this. The Orishas, Seven Powers of the Yoruba Religion by Mambo Dantor, or Lilith Dorsey's Orishas, Goddesses, and Voodoo Queens, the divine feminine in the African religious traditions. Yes, a lot of scholarship has gone into this. I want to look at one example, and that is Chongo, a male god of thunder, lightning, and fire, and the Roman Catholic identifying piece, which is Saint Barbara. Saint Barbara. Now, how does this happen? Well, we got to look at Saint Barbara first of all. She is a 4th century of the Common Era Christian martyr, beheaded by her father for refusing to give up her Christian faith and marrying according to his wishes. There are a lot of early Roman Catholic saints who had this kind of thing occur to them. It often sets up the story that they want to be pure virgins in a Christian tradition, but are being forced by their Roman patriarchal fathers to marry pagans, as they were seeing it. And no, says the daughter, but then they are punished. At the moment of her beheading by her father was struck by lightning, according to the story. So when we look at the iconography of St. Barbara, we see some interesting things going on. There is a lightning bolt behind her in this iconography. There is usually a tower that we're going to see in there. I'll get to that in a little bit. A chalice from which the sacred wine is drank. And also, in this one anyway, a cannon, and we'll see why in a moment. You can buy yourself Barbara oil online or in some stores. Barbara is invoked for protection against fires and lightning. Well, we can see why that makes sense within the Roman Catholic saint tradition. Is also petitioned to help with matters involving healing and love. Well, now that's a little different because the real Barbara is refusing to fall in love, isn't she? So there's some interesting kind of ways that the story goes around and around, but indeed you can buy Saint Barbara oil. Here is a medal, the patron saint of artillerymen. And I did mention that artillery. Now, probably this comes from the fact of bang, the lightning and the thunder that kills her father as he kills her. And so she becomes the patron saint of artillerymen everywhere. And there she is with a cannon. The tower is in the background in this particular medal, and she's holding her chalice. She has the crown of martyrdom, and then we see lightning. Well, as time has gone on, Saint Barbara and Chongo had to be at first completely separate because those Roman Catholic authorities would not have been happy with this syncretism. But as time has gone on, the people have felt comfortable getting more and more explicit about this. And now we can see a lot of places in iconography in which St. Barbara and Chongo are the same person, transforming often, or just hanging out and holding hands. So Barbara and Chongo, and so we have the ancient Aruba, Arisa of lightning and thunder. He always carries a double-headed axe. Saint Barbara is going to have herself a double-edged sword, and there she is with her chalice. And so you see nowadays, if you begin looking around the iconography mixed together, Chongo nowadays being portrayed as African and Yoruba in origin, and the good old fashioned Catholic saint iconography still very much part of the picture. And again, we see a lot of transformational iconography in which Chongo and Saint Barbara are going back and forth in terms of manifestations of this particular god or spirit. Santeria Africana, Santa Barbara Africana, and she then has nowadays been syncretized out of the Caribbean Roman Catholic tradition and being used nowadays as a straight up African woman in the iconography. Well, there's one other thing that you may have noticed about this particular iconography, and that is that she is holding a castle or a tower, that tower usually being struck by lightning. The tower in the story of St. Barbara, she is kept there by her father uh, uh, because he wants to keep her chaste and ready for marriage to the guy he chooses. Well, so she's stuck in this tower. And yes, the true story of Rapunzel is thought to be about a young woman in Italy named Barbara who was so beautiful that her father locked her away in a tower so no man could get to her. Though many asked for her hand in marriage, Barbara dedicated herself to God and a newfound Christian faith and refused them all, says Wiki. And so, yes, the story of Rapunzel appears to be the story of Saint Barbara. A little bit cleaned up, indeed, for the Disney version, but very much part of the story. And indeed, the next time you get out your Disney lay with and build your Rapunzel tower, do remember that that tower has a lot of background, a lot of syncretism to it. That yes, it is a place of being held captive. It is a symbol for how the patriarchy is controlling the feminine impulse, etc. And yes, it can also be a Disney movie. So that's kind of how syncretism works. We can have syncretism as happening accidentally. We can have it happening by other cultural people looking at other cultures and trying to figure out, hey, what does Buddhism mean? And I'm going to put in my Western assumptions. And also, syncretism can be about hiding native practices so that the colonial authorities can't figure out exactly what you're doing. That's it for this week. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Next week, I'm going to be talking about sin by any other name. Yes, syncretism works in a couple of different ways with different concepts. Sometimes, because religion is definitely a human psychological thing, we get psychological states described across cultures. And sometimes, however, cultures adopt the ideas of others. And certainly the idea of sin is going to be preached by the colonial missionaries going forth out into the world. Thanks a lot for listening. If you have any comments or questions, email me, minister@firstunitarian.org. Also, on Fridays, we have a live Zoom discussion. Join in. I will send you the Zoom link. Just again, email me, minister@firstunitarian.org. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.